Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me thank you for being here. The stories on this podcast are meant to let you know that you're not alone in what you're going through, and that we can all find strength in struggle with the right perspective. If you've been enjoying the podcast, let me ask that you leave a review on your platform of choice to help us grow so that we can continue to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 146. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very special guest out in Utah, Brennik Eltagonde. Brennik, how are you, man?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Did I nail that pronunciation or what?
Good. You did. You got it right.
Well, so I pronounced your name correctly. I introduced you by name, but I would love for you to introduce yourself to people listening, however you see fit. I mean, who is Brennik?
Yeah. So I just turned 30 this year, the big 3-0. Definitely feeling it in my joints and my bones. But yeah, I was actually born and raised in California, Sacramento to be exact. And then a little bit after high school, I moved out to Hawaii. I was out there for a couple of years. I have a lot of family out there. Wanted to meet them and stuff. And then from Hawaii, I actually ended up meeting my fiance now, and we've been together for about 7 years now. And we'll be getting married pretty soon. We're actually gonna be having a kid come here April. So super excited about that. And then just last year is when we moved out to Utah. She has some family out here, and we just wanted to be around the mountains. We wanted a different change in scenery and stuff. And it's been great living out here for the past year.
Yeah. So, and we connected in person, I guess for the first time. The first time we had a conversation was out in Utah a couple months ago, but I think we figured out we were both in Austin, Texas as well at a certain point. We
Yeah.
just didn't connect then.
Yeah.
And during our conversation out in Utah, we talked about so many deep things in such a short period of time. We talked about loss. We talked about becoming a parent. We talked about everything in between those two. And I'm really excited to learn more about your story through the podcast with the people listening to us now. Before we get there, though, I asked you through the questionnaire before we recorded, what's the hardest question anybody could ever ask you? And you said, are you okay? Would be the hardest question anybody could ask. And I'm curious if you could explain that for everybody.
Yeah. I think as men, we always want to be the toughest person in the room, right? And so we don't ever want to show that weakness. And I think just growing up, whenever anybody has asked, are you okay? Even though you might not have been okay at that moment, might have been dealing with something, it's always come up like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm good. Like you don't ever want to show any of that type of weakness. And that's how I've been for a very long time. And just, I don't know, almost like just hiding that part that's not okay, hiding that away from people. And yeah, I think as men we struggle with letting that part be seen. So yeah, that's definitely one of the hardest questions. And I think like now that I'm coming to like know more about myself, know more about mental health, um that question's it's still hard to answer. But you still have to be able to open up to people about that.
Sure. I think it was Chris Jammy who once said, to share your weakness is to make yourself vulnerable. To make yourself vulnerable is to show your strength. And I do see it that way. I think being vulnerable is one of the strongest things that any of us can do. And yet, like you mentioned, growing up, especially as a male in our society, it's not something you see all the time. It's something you almost feel maybe a sense of guilt or shame around if you were to open up or be soft or, shed a tear.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering where along your path, your viewpoint on that has shifted from I need to keep this inside to it's actually maybe healthy and beneficial to open up.
Yeah, so that definitely changed. So the exact date, I know the exact date, but where it actually changed for me was a little bit after that. The exact date was October 16th, 2021, where I had someone very close to me pass away with through suicide. And at that moment, it wasn't something that changed in my own self, but I'll say probably a couple months after that. So that's when I was like, okay, we need to start talking about stuff like this. It's like I said, as men, it's really hard for us to talk about it. And so yeah, it's just something that we need to do. And I think that through social media and stuff and with all the stuff that's coming out, I think that we are going in the right direction for talking about it, letting it be known and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's definitely when it was shifting in my mind to start talking about stuff like that.
So I believe this would be your answer to the first question I typically ask, but what's the hardest thing you've ever had to handle in life? So circumstance that you did not get to choose. Is it that loss?
Yeah, definitely that lost. And it's pretty crazy because the person that I lost was pretty young. He was in his 20s. And with loss, usually when it comes to like a grandparent, a great grandparent, whatever it is, it's like you almost have that feeling of like that this is gonna happen, even though it hurts so bad. It's like this is gonna happen. Like they're getting old. It's just part of life, right? But when it's someone that is in their 20s and they have so much life ahead of them, and then it happens, I think it just hurts like a little extra, you know.
So, I know this could be a sensitive topic for people listening, but we all lose people and we lose different kinds of people in different ways. Uh, would you mind sharing a little bit about why it was so unexpected? Maybe, if you could take us back to when you found out that this had happened and what was going through your mind in those moments.
Yeah, for sure. So on that day it's pretty crazy. We're actually supposed to have a family get together. And the reason why it was so unexpected was because this person was I've never seen him mad. I've never seen him sad. I've never seen him upset. Just he was always happy, literally always happy. Um, and he was in my life for I want to say 4, almost 5 years. Um, I don't want to say exactly who he is, but he was someone that was very close to our family. But yeah, like in those 4 or 5 years, I've never seen him ever mad, sad, or anything. He was always happy. Um, and he was very, very close to our family. And so when it happened, that's the reason why it was so unexpected, was because it's like we still don't really we won't ever understand like why, but that's the question that we keep asking ourselves, is why we never seen the signs. We can look back in life and we can say like maybe this was a sign, maybe this was a sign, and it's like, but we don't know for sure. And that's definitely like the reason why it was so unexpected. And like I said, he was so young. He had he had stuff that he was going after in the future. He had goals. He had all this stuff, and it's like all those things were completely halted to a stop because of this decision.
So on the podcast, episode 137 with Justin Rubin, we talked about a similar type of loss. Somebody that was young, somebody that seemingly had it all, didn't show the signs, and one day was just gone. And I asked Justin this question, and I'll ask you this question, but if you could go back in time and do something, have a conversation with this person, what would you do or say to them?
The hard question. If I could have seen the signs leading up to it, or maybe not seen it, if I would have just noticed something was off, I would 100% just went up to him and just give him a hug, tell him that he's not alone, tell him that everything will be okay. Um, yeah, I would love to have that. I would love to have 60 seconds with him again. You know, that's definitely something that I wish I could have back.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like I'm getting emotional. I didn't know this person, but it's hard to imagine that somebody in our lives in the past or even right now that we both know, right, could be going through something so deep, so dark inside and not let anyone else in on it. And I think the reason I asked that question is because I think that's a wake up call for all of us is, there's somebody in our lives right now that just needs a hug, that just needs to be seen, that just needs to be heard, that just needs to be loved. And we don't have to wait until we see a sign, or we don't have to wait until something's wrong to go do that. And it's maybe a little unconventional, to go up to somebody who seems fine and to ask them, are you okay? But I mean, to your point about the hardest question that you could think of, I think we need more of that. I think we need more people who ask, are you okay? And then are there to listen and to see through maybe a superficial response.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah,
then there's it. Oh, go ahead, Brennick.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, I think we do need to start asking people that a lot more. But then when they do say, "Oh no, I'm fine," it's like, no, let's dig deeper. Like, be for real. Like, how are things going? Like, are you really okay? And I think if you ask them that, I think people, a lot more people will open up if you ask them that second time.
I think that's a great practice. And I mean, anybody listening to this podcast, I would encourage you to go do that, go practice that, go try that, and maybe go try that with someone that you know really well and seems really good, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's this other quote, and I came across this actually earlier today as I was thinking about our conversation, and it's tailored toward, I think, the author of the quote is speaking about a female, but this could apply to anyone. And so I'll read it and then maybe we talk about it. This is from John Irving, who said, "When someone you love dies and you're not expecting it, you don't lose them all at once. You lose her in pieces over a long time, the way the mail stops coming. Her scent fades from the pillows and even from the clothes in her closet and drawers. Gradually, you accumulate the parts of her that are gone. Just when the day comes, when there's a particular missing part that overwhelms you with the feeling that she's gone forever, there comes another day and another specifically missing part." And it's that idea of, you do lose someone, but that loss lasts. It's not a one and done. And I'm wondering how that hits you with this person.
Yeah. And it kind of comes back to like what those people say where it's like, oh, it'll get better. And it's like it 100% lasts with you for the rest of your life because it's not necessarily getting better. It's just that you figure out different ways to handle it. You figure out different ways to accept it. Um, for instance, the probably the first, I want to say, 6 to 8 months after it happened, I would get these things that reminded me of him, and it would almost like make me mad. Like, stop! Like, why these things keep on showing up? It's like these different signs and stuff like that. And I ended up going to this convention, and one of the speakers, she was talking about a similar situation, and she said that she had the same exact feeling that I was feeling the first couple of months, but then someone told her that uh, these are actually just signs that they are still right there with you, right there by your side, giving you signs that, hey, you know what, like I'm okay, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it because it completely switched my mindset to now, like when I see these signs and stuff that reminds me of him, it it makes me feel better because it's like he's right there. He's giving me this sign that, like, he's good. Like he's at a better place and he's doing fine. So
So, not that this situation overall is positive in any way, shape, or form. However, if you could pull a positive or two from this situation and from the aftermath, and maybe for you in particular, are you better in any way, shape, or form having gone through this experience? And yeah, I'll leave it there.
I wouldn't say better, but I would say more aware of what's going on with people. I definitely try to see the signs a lot more. I think we all just get so busy with life that like sometimes the signs will just pass right by us, you know.
Mm.
Um, for instance, just like if you know a friend that's always posting on social media and then all of a sudden just they're they're a ghost and they're not posting anything at all, um, I will kind of notice that and I'll just send them a text like, "Yo, what's up, brother? Like, how you doing? Like, how's life?" And I've definitely been doing that the past 2 years. Um, Even just people that I would talk through just through text pretty often. If I see that they're pretty quiet, then I'll hit them up. And so I think that's definitely something I've been doing the past 2 years. And the people close to me know, like I'll just randomly text them. Um, and I have friends that do the same for me now, which is awesome. Like they'll randomly hit me up, like, "Hey, how's it going?" And it's like before that happened, I think I would have been like, "Why you hit me up? Like, like what's up?" But like now it's like, yo, they're just checking in on you. So
It is amazing how busy and distracted and focused on ourselves and our own pursuits that we can be sometimes. And in that process, miss signs, miss even explicit calls for help.
yeah,
And yeah, it's just it's a nice wake up call that life isn't just about us, and that it's so much bigger, and that true meaning is found in relationship and in connection. And if we could just spend a little bit more time slowing down enough to be there for others, I think this world would be a much better place.
yeah, 100% agree.
So with that being said, that's the hardest thing that you've ever had to handle that you didn't choose for yourself. If we were then to look at the hardest thing that you've ever done on purpose, what would that be, and why did you choose to do that thing?
So I'll definitely say the race that I did is the toughest mudder, the world's toughest mudder, which is a 24-hour race. It's a 5 mile loop with 20 something obstacles in that 5 miles. And you try to get as many miles as you can in the 24 hours. And so it's pretty crazy. So the person that passed away in my life was actually supposed to be there with me as my pit crew. And and that incident happened 2 months before I did the race. And so during the race, and I sent you a picture of my bib. I put his name on there, said it was for him, and it was actually the men's mental health awareness month. So I put that on there as well. And so I ran it for him, which was awesome. And so before that race, I ended up only training up to 20 miles. That was my longest run I ever did. And I only trained for 10 weeks for this race. And so I ran it with my uncle. We both ran it for the person that passed away. And I ended up getting 60 miles in the 24 hours. And if you think about it, like with the obstacles and stuff, like having to climb up ropes, jump in water, ice baths and stuff, and running with the wetsuit and all this stuff, it makes it 100% harder to run the 60 miles in 24 hours, you know? So that was definitely mentally and physically the hardest thing that I ever um, did on my own, choosingly. And I can vividly remember like the last lap. So the last lap, I wanted to 100% complete stop. Like I wanted to just lay down exactly wherever I was, and I just I wasn't like fully there. You know, it was already about to be 24 hours. The sun came up, so it started getting hot again. After doing all that stuff, my feet hurt, my hands hurt, just everything hurt. And there was this one part where so majority of the lap was a lot of sand.
Mm.
So running in sand makes it even harder, right? But there was this one hill where you're literally stepping and you're like not going anywhere because you're stepping in the sand and then it's coming down. So it was a really hard part where this last lap, and I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it again. um, I just couldn't take any more steps. I was just trying to, and it was pretty windy. And I'm not even kidding you, the wind shifted because I literally just looked up in the sky. I was like, yo, just be with me, please. Like I need to get to this last lap. I need to finish this last lap. And this gust of wind, I'm not even kidding you, helped me up this little hill. And it was the craziest feeling I've ever felt ever. And got me up on top of the hill, and I was able to run back down the hill and finish this race. And yeah, that was definitely the hardest thing. And you can see in the other picture that I sent you, like I kissed my bib and I looked up to the sky, pointed to the sky right as I finished the on the finish line. And yeah, man, my family was there to greet me, and it was the best feeling ever.
That's really special. I have the chills as well thinking about that gust of wind. So couple questions. One, when did you sign up for the race? Was it before losing this person or after? That's my first question.
Yeah, it was before, and it was just like at a point in my life where I was like, I need a challenge, like I felt so stuck, and like I was like, I need to do something. So I actually sent a video of the race to my uncle, and I was like, yo, we haven't done a race in a while, let's do something. And so he instantly texts back, yeah, let's do it. So I can always count on him for certain stuff like challenges like that, because we are definitely a family that likes to challenge ourselves. So
What about a challenge made you feel like it would help get you out of a stagnant place? Like, what about challenges feel like they can create a spark?
I think just growing up, always been in sports. So I played baseball, wrestling, football, all my life. I boxed a little bit, and I think always just having that challenge of going to a game on Saturdays, or going to a game during the week for baseball, going to a match for wrestling. I always had that in my life ever since I was 5, 6 years old. And then after high school, when that kind of stopped, that's when I was like, I need something, and that's definitely when I picked up boxing a lot more. And then just the gym in general, a lot more. So that's definitely when I started picking up how frequent I was going to the gym, and just having a challenge of like, oh, I need to get to this weight. I need to lift this amount of weight. I need to do this amount of pull-ups, like just having that challenge all this time. And then I actually never got into running up until 2021. So just 2 years ago. And the only reason I got into running was because I absolutely hate running. And so I saw that as a challenge, a new challenge, to get better at. And I'm still not the best runner, but I'm more of a sprinter than a long distance runner. So and yeah, so I've always seen that as a challenge, and I was like, you know what, let's sign up for this race and let's do it.
You know, I love that answer. And part of the reason I asked is to have a chance to say what I'm going to say, which I think goes hand in hand with what you said, which is I do think deep down inside, all human beings want to be resilient, right? I think we have this drive to overcome. And whether for some of us that gets suppressed for whatever reason, or I don't know why not all challenge brings out the best in people, because it can also bring out the worst. But I think challenge can ignite a spark because we inherently want to be resilient. We want to overcome. And so when you put something hard in front of most human beings, there's this elevation that happens to try to reach, to try to climb over, to go through, to get around whatever obstacle is in our path. And that's why I think a Tough Mudder, the world's toughest mudder, is a great example of that because of the obstacles. And I'm wondering for you, what was the hardest obstacle out of those 20?
Uh, there's two.
Okay.
One was so it's called the Arctic plunge. And so you literally go on a slide into ice water that they're literally all night, they're just dumping ice into it. So it's freezing cold. And I mean, after running and already going into other obstacles, it's just hard to do it. And it just plays mentally, because you're like, how cold it is, but you have to get through it. Like it's just something you have to do to keep going onto the race. And so that was definitely one of them. And the second one was this is another water obstacle, but it has a cage right above the water, right? And so your head can barely fit in between the water and the cage, and you have to crawl, I would say probably 20 yards in the water. So you're going upside down like this, right? And on some parts, they have a black tarp over it, so it's pitch black. Yeah. So I don't have like claustrophobia, like where you get like super scared of tight places, but like during that time, I was definitely scared because you're crawling, you feel the water, so you wanna go back up, but then the cage is right there. And so like those are definitely the two hardest obstacles that I had to go through. And of course both of them were water. So and I'm not scared of water at all. It's just they were just hard obstacles.
They both sound definitely hard for different and similar reasons. So, okay, world's toughest mutter, hardest thing you've ever done on purpose. I've got two other things, one that has happened and one that hasn't happened just yet that we both discussed the last time we were together. And so the first of those things is entrepreneurship. And I think, that should probably be in most people's bucket of hardest things that they've ever done. And so I'm wondering for you, when did you first consider yourself an entrepreneur? When did you feel the call to take ownership of what you were doing? And then how's it been?
Yeah, so this was probably 6 years ago now, I want to say, um, where I was just going job from job, completely hating the office life, working for someone, having someone being a boss and always telling you like what to do, what you can't do. Um, and it's not that I have a problem with doing that. It's just I have a problem with like certain people trying to like use their authority to just boss you around pretty much, you know. And I have a shirt. I actually still gotta send it to you. I have a shirt. I'll send it to you. That the quote on the shirt is "Be a leader, not a boss." You know, it's like I would be totally fine. I've had like really good managers and bosses in the past where like I've like meshed with them well. It's just the reason why I left was just because I wanted a different opportunity and stuff like that. And those people were leaders, but I've had a lot of people who were bosses, you know, and it's like they're just using that authority to get to you and stuff like that. And so I was just going from job to job, and I was just like so over it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start training, and I'm gonna go completely on my own. Like I was thinking about going to actual gym and starting there and like having someone coach me through everything. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put myself in this sink or swim situation, and if I can't make it work, I'm not gonna be able to pay my bills. I'm not gonna be able to eat, and I think that's the best pressure that I needed to put myself into in order to succeed. And so I went completely uh, not contracted or anything like that. And so I found this independent personal training gym, started training there, and as I started training, I was just posting all of my clients on my social media. Word of mouth started growing, and it kind of blew up after probably the first year. The first year was probably the hardest, but after that first year, it started blowing up, and I was training 10 to 12 clients a day, Monday through Friday, and then still training another 4 to 5 on Saturdays as well. So I was working ridiculous amount of hours, and it was a lot of stress. But I did that literally for probably like 4 or 5 years in a row, uh, and that definitely taught me different ways to succeed in entrepreneurship. And then recently, when I moved out to Utah, I switched everything online, personal training. And then that's when I really started picking up with my videography as well. And so I've been doing a lot of freelance stuff with that. Started shooting a lot with this company, and so yeah, I mean it's been working out really good for me. I definitely bought back my own time by going online for personal training and then doing some freelance stuff for videography.
So I can relate to what you said about the long hours and figuring it out that way in the beginning, even though our stories look a little bit different. But for me, it's that you wake up in the morning, you're maybe getting a workout in for yourself, and then the rest of the day, it is driving to and from clients' houses. It's on calls. It's the next call. It's the next client, this session, that session. And you get home exhausted at the end of the day and you fall asleep in a second as soon as your head hits the pillow. And then you do it all again the next day. And at times, I don't even know what keeps me going, to be honest, but
Yeah.
something does. I'm wondering how you sustained that for 4 years. I mean, what was the driving force beneath all of that?
Um, it's a hard question because like it almost like you just said, like you didn't know what was that drive for you. And I definitely had a lot of moments like that. Definitely. And I think just as entrepreneurs, like we always have that wonder, like, why am I doing this? You know, like I'm literally waking up at 4 to train at 5, and then I'm training all morning, and then I get a couple hour break, and it's either you take a nap or you get your own workout in, and then you do that same thing for the rest of the night. You get off, you eat dinner, you go to bed, and you do it all over again. And I've definitely had moments where I was like, man, why am I doing this? This is like so much, it's like I'm missing time with my family. I'm missing time with my girl. Um, and I think the reason why I kept going was because of those two things, my family and my fiance. Like I want to be the person that changes their life for the better. I want to be that provider. I want to be the person that can make a difference in our family.
Mm. So I relate to that so much. And I'm going to tell a story and then share a current struggle. And I'd love to hear your take on it as we also transition to one of the upcoming things in your life. So the story goes, and I think this is made up, but someone told it to me and it made sense. But there's this businessman from North America who's visiting South America for a trip, and he's walking on the beach, and he sees this fisherman sitting in the sand eating his lunch with a line in the water. And he walks up to him and he asks him what he's doing, and the fisherman says he's fishing. And the businessman says, well, if you got another rod, you could catch more fish and then you can sell those fish, take that money and buy a boat. And the fisherman looked up at him and said, well, why would I do that? And the businessman said, well, because then when you have a boat, you can hire other fishermen, you can go out further and you can catch more fish. And the fisherman looked up at him and said, well, why would I do that? And the businessman said, well, because eventually, if you catch enough fish, you can buy a bigger boat, you can hire more fishermen, you can make so much money that you could just retire and sit on the beach and eat your lunch and catch fish all day. And the fisherman looked up at him and said, well, what do you think I'm doing? And, I think like for me, right, I share that drive to provide. I want to change the life of my wife, the people around me that I care about. And sometimes I have to catch myself and I have to step back and realize that maybe all that other person wants, whether it's my wife, a good friend, a family member, maybe they just want time with me. Maybe they don't care about a nice car or a big house or whatever it is. And I have the time right now. So why am I trading it for time that I could have later? Why not just use it right now? That's such a struggle for me. And one of my biggest fears, which is where your life transition comes in, is someday when I have children, I hope, it's going to be so hard. It's going to be so hard to turn down that dial enough to be home and be present and not feel like I have to be out working 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. Does that resonate at all with you?
100%. And yeah, this is something that I struggle with as well because in my mindset, the whole reason why I'm doing all this is so we can have that better life, the back half of our life, and not necessarily like retirement age, like 50s, 60s, like not that, like I want that like soon, 30s, 40s, when I can still be able to move and do this stuff, right? But then at the same thing, it's like you put in all these hours in crucial moments of your children's lives, and so I can see it both ways. It's like, do you put the work in now, or do you work for the rest of your life but like still have those moments throughout your life? And it's like, man, I don't know, we don't know what the right answer is. And that's definitely something I struggle with for sure. But the whole reason why I'm putting work in now is so when the time does come, I'm financially ready, I'm physically ready, you know, and just ready to take on just anything that comes up.
So, what are you most looking forward to about being a dad, and what scares you the most outside of potentially missing crucial moments? So, what are you most looking forward to, and what scares you the most outside of what you already said?
Um, so definitely what I'm looking forward to. This is kind of a funny answer, but being able to relive my childhood
Mm.
through him. So I'm having a boy, and being able to go to the games and just like be in that atmosphere again, you know, going to his matches and just watching him wrestle if he wants to wrestle and stuff like that. And then even just like watching my own old TV shows that I cartoons and stuff that I used to watch, like I'm gonna have him watch it, and if he likes it, then cool. But then I'm sorry, what was the second question?
And so that's what's most exciting. What scares you the most?
What scares me the most? The way this world is going, and not knowing what the world is gonna be when he's in his 20s, when he's my age. And that's definitely the scariest part because it's like, I mean, even when he's a kid growing up, it's like we don't even know what the next couple years are going to look like. You know, everything changes so fast, and we've seen that through 2020. And yeah, that's definitely like a scary part. It's like we don't know what the future holds, and it's the scariest part because like you're bringing in this child into this world that is so scary, but that's also such a precious thing to do in life, and it's an amazing thing to do in life. And yeah, but it's very scary.
You know what's interesting to me is that this is for you and me. I'm 29. I'll be 30 next year. But for people our age, like looking forward to the future, we don't know what it holds, of course, but we only have 30 years of life behind us. And for some of that, we were children. But you think about people who were alive during, let's say, World War II. I would imagine conversations like this, they definitely didn't happen over Zoom or on the internet, but I'm sure they happened. And people said, you know, this world is so scary. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I want to bring a child into this world, or I'm afraid of that. And yeah, life is hard and life changes, and there are scary things and also amazing things. And I wonder if that cycle will continue where, sure, fast forward another 30 years and life looks a lot different. And there are, just like today, good things and hard things. They just look a little bit different than they do today. I'm just wondering. So I guess we'll find out in 20, 30 years, but
Yeah,
I think he'll be okay, you know?
yeah, I'm hoping so.
All right, so I've got a tough question. I've thought of this myself. I don't know if I have a good answer to this, and I don't know if I will have a good answer until I'm pressured someday from like a time standpoint that my child is almost here. But what is the one quality you hope that your son gets from you, and what is one quality you hope your son does not necessarily get from you?
Oh yeah, that's a tough one. Um, it almost ties back to one of the very first questions, which was like, are you okay? Like I've definitely been that person to always keep everything in. And I hope I hope I can teach him not to be that way growing up. And I think I will, obviously because of how I think now. Um, so I definitely think that's a quality that I hope he doesn't get from me. Um, and then one that I hope he does get from me is just being a family person. I'm a huge family person. So um I love hanging out with my family. Like me and my family are very, very close. And I know there's like some people that aren't close to their family. Um, and to me it's like so foreign because like my family is so close. We play games together, we do everything for like birthdays, we celebrate everything, you know. If we do holidays, like I'll be seeing them like next week, and I'm like so excited about it. And being away from my family, I was away from my family when I moved to Hawaii. And now I'm away from my family when I'm out here in Utah, and it's definitely hard. But it's just part of life. Like you gotta leave that nest a little bit, you know. And I'm trying to convince my family to move out here, which would be awesome. But if they don't decide to, it's okay. But well, I'm only a 10-hour drive to Sacramento from here, so it's not too bad. I can do that in a day. So yeah, I'm a huge family person, so I hope he gets that as well.
It'll be, it'll be really cool if you remember when he's old enough to digest a conversation like this. If he could hear you at age 30 before he's here have this conversation, I wonder what he would think of that. That's going to be cool.
Yeah, I'll definitely show him this podcast.
There we go. There we go. So, all right, Brennik, this is the Project Endure podcast. And so I'm wondering for you, when you hear the word endurance, what does that mean to you?
Endurance. I mean, it could mean a lot of things. It can mean um being able to keep going in a race, um in your while you're working out, while you're boxing. It could be anything physical, but it can also mean endurance as in mentally just keep going. You know, it's like things are going to get hard, you're going to want to quit, but you just got to keep going. And yeah, I mean, just keep enduring through the endurance.
I think those three words, just keep going, sum it up super well. Well, I'll have to put that on a shirt someday. It's got a ring to it. Just keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, and so, all right, this question is a little bit out there. I don't ask everybody this question, but since you are in the world of content creation, you're in the world of media, what's one lesson that applies to life that you've learned through looking at through a camera or taking pictures or shooting video? What's one life lesson that you've learned in that world?
Oh, this is the biggest one, and I struggle with it still. And it's trying to be a perfectionist.
Mm.
So, um, I've put in through so much stuff or so many hours through a certain video, and I'll post it, and it doesn't go anywhere. You know, and it's like, dude, I thought this video was perfect. You know, it has the color grading is perfect. The angles are perfect. I'm like thinking to myself, like everything's perfect about this, but it didn't go anywhere. And then there's videos that take me literally 5 minutes to edit. I post it and it gets crazy amount of views. And it's like nothing about this video was perfect, but it still blew up. Like why? And so definitely recently I've told myself like stop being so perfect with that side of stuff. But then also just in life, like nothing's perfect. You know, it's life's not going to be perfect. There's going to be things that are still going to come up in the future for me, for you, for everyone, you know. And it's yeah, that word perfect is such a hard thing. It's like we try to chase it, but we know that we can never get to that that level.
There's a quote. So there are two quotes. There's one from The Office, the show The Office. Have you ever seen that?
I haven't watched the show. I was more of a Friends person, but yeah.
Not a bad choice. Friends is amazing as well. And so the quote from The Office is "Whole body's nerfect," which I just think is funny because the phrase itself is all kind of screwed up, and we are too. And then there's a deeper, more serious quote from Michael Law, who said, "At its root, perfectionism isn't really about a deep love of being meticulous. It's about fear of making a mistake, fear of disappointing others, fear of failure, fear of success." And I'm wondering for you if when it comes to content or anything else, that chasing perfect is actually rooted in fear. Is that accurate for you?
100%. That's definitely what it comes down to. Fear of not being successful in that one thing that I do, you know. Yeah, fear of just not being perfect, fear of yeah, fear is definitely rooted back to why.
Well, it's interesting because, I think we've all experienced seasons of life where we feel really good about things, whether it's you're an entrepreneur and you just, cashed a big check, or you're a parent and your child just did something that made you really proud, or you're just having a good day at work and you feel on top of the world, it frees you up to be a little bit looser and a little bit more authentic and a little bit more just whatever happens will happen and it's all okay. And I think we're at our best when we're in those states when we can afford to lose, right? When we don't need that next thing to happen. We don't need that next piece of content to get a ton of likes because we're good regardless. And I think at its core, that happens when we're able to detach our self worth and who we are, our identities, from material things, from the outside world, right? Like if you could be Brennik, the human who creates content, versus Brennik, the content creator, those two things hit a little bit different when a piece of content doesn't go well. And I think it's a good reminder that we are not what we do. And for that reason, we don't need to be perfect in anything that we do.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's definitely something that I've been trying to tell myself probably the past year. Because like years before that, through social media and stuff, I was definitely always trying to post stuff through my very expensive camera, you know. But recently I'm like, you know what? There's people that are posting just on with their phones, you know, phones are really good now. And so it's like I don't always have to do that perfect quality type of stuff, you know. And it's like some of that stuff hits, some of it doesn't. It's just the way it is, and we just gotta keep going.
Yeah. And to your point, you posted a video the other day that I thought was hilarious. Your sense of humor shone through. And it was the one with the audio of influencers
Yeah.
and what they're like with it's amazing.
Yeah.
Because it's relatable, you know, and I think that's also what makes whether it's content or just anything we put out into the world resonate with other people is when it's relatable. And to be relatable, it has to be real. And to be real, it can't be perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, so
That
on
was
that,
that was just shot with just my phone. It's like there's a video right there related with people, and yeah, and it's funny. And it's funny because like the reason why I posted it is because like I literally do that type of stuff, you know. And I'll probably do some more in the future, but it's like it's a lot of people don't get it when they see a video like that. And I've seen comments where they're like, oh, this is so fake, this and that. And it's like, what do you think movies are? Like movies are acted, you know? And it's
yeah.
like, do you think they're real? Like they're shooting it all live? Like, come on. Like
Yeah. And you know though, and that's so true. I've seen a lot of content as of late that has done incredibly well. You know, millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, whatever the metrics are. They've done great. And there are these videos of people crossing a finish line. There are these videos of people in a real life scenario, and they are not the ones filming themselves. And there's just something a little bit next level when you can see that raw moment that somebody is not trying to capture, but it is captured. And it's so much more powerful. And yet at the same time, if you're trying to create content, you and I don't have a camera person following us around all day. And so some of that needs to be kind of created and sculpted by the person behind the camera, by us. And so there's a give and take to it for sure.
yeah, I definitely agree with that because recently I posted a video of us announcing that we're pregnant to my family. And that video ended up like millions of views on Instagram and TikTok. And it was just because it was so raw. The quality of the video wasn't really good. I literally held my camera right here, like so they couldn't see it, you know. And it's like it was so raw and the emotion and the story behind it and everything. And a lot of people loved it, and so I think that's why it took off.
Yeah, I agree. So, with that being said, Brennick, people listening to this podcast are all over the world going through all different sorts of things. And some of them, if you ask them, are you really okay? Would have to answer truthfully with, no, I'm not okay right now. To those people who are not feeling okay, not in a great place, not sure where to go or what to do, what would you say to them?
Well, first thing I always say is you're not alone. And I try to preach this as much as I can because oftentimes, and I felt in that same place where you feel so alone with the problems that you have and you don't want to burden them with anybody else. So that's the reason why you don't open up about them, right? And you don't want anybody else to worry about you and stuff like that. And so that's why we don't open up about them. And So the first thing will be, you're not alone. I'm here if you ever want to talk. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people are there if you want to talk as well. And um, so there's this UFC fighter. He's actually fighting tomorrow. His name is Patty. And he said this thing because right before one of his fights, he had a friend commit suicide. And he said this thing that like it's literally gonna stick with me for a long time. He said, "I would rather have you cry on my shoulder." And don't quote me, this is not exact, but I'd rather have you cry on my shoulder than me cry at your funeral. And that's a hard one because it's like it's so true. I would rather you come to me, be able to open up and cry with me, and I'll probably cry too. Open up about these emotions and talk about them and get through them than me finding out something happened and I'm going to your funeral the next week. And yeah, so just I would just say just open up to people, and those people close to you, they're not going to judge you, you know, no matter what it is. They're not going to judge you. And if you don't have those people that are close to you, find someone. Because there's other people, for instance, there's therapists. They won't judge you. It's part of their work. They'll be able to talk through it with you, and it'll help a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll plug the Project Endure community, not because of anything that I've done, but because of all the amazing people like you, Brennick. Like they they understand, we understand, I should say, what it's like to be in a not great place. We understand what it's like to hurt. And there's no judgment. There's a lot of acceptance. There's a lot of space. And I'll nominate myself. If you're listening to this podcast, reach out to Brennick, reach out to me. And we would also love to get you connected with other amazing humans who would also be there for you and support you. Because there are so many people like that out in this world. Even if you don't have any of them around you right now, doesn't mean that you can't create that circle. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll definitely say it's almost easier to talk to a stranger than someone that is really close to you, which is crazy to think about, but it's true. You know, it's like I think the reason why is because you don't want that person to judge you. Right. And or they if you don't know them, they can't really judge you because they don't know your life. They don't know the people that you're around. And so I think it is easier sometimes to talk to a stranger than it is like your own family or close friends. So yeah, if you listen to this podcast, like I'm 100% open to talk. If you want to talk over DMs, literally, I'll have a FaceTime with you. But anybody, like, I really don't care, you know.
And he means that, and
Yeah.
and I do as well. And so for anybody listening, Brennick, that wants to connect with you, whether it's to have a conversation like that or simply just to follow along and watch you become a dad through social media or whatever it is, where's the best place for people to do that?
Definitely my Instagram. That's definitely where I'm most active. It's Brennik Eltagonde, just my first and last name. And yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will link that in the description to make it easy. And I appreciate you so much, man. And I can't wait to watch you become a dad and to follow in your footsteps in the future. You're going to be great at it. And I just very thankful for this conversation.
I appreciate it, man. This was awesome, and I'm so glad we got to hop on.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Endure podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Endure Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.